Electrocast.
Cars say a lot about who we are.
It represents freedom for a lot of people.
This season on Drive, I'm going to talk to all sorts of different people.
I looked at car names.
Yes.
And
yes.
I found all the car names that have science or astronomically
it's
inspired.
Crazy.
It's huge.
It is. Yes, I happen to be CEO of Ford Motor Company. For me, it's all about cars, movement, and our mutual passion for things that get us around. This is Drive, and I'm Jim Farley.
This episode is brought to you by Paramount Plus. Ewan McGregor stars as Count Alexander Rostov in A Gentleman in Moscow, the new limited series based on the best-selling novel. Stream it on March 29th with the Paramount Plus with Showtime plan. Visit ParamountPlus.com to try it free.
Hold on to your butts.
We are changing the course of history as we see it. That is what Wesley demands.
Now, this affects Iris. Iris, where are you?
What you feel only matters to you. I do not entertain hypotheticals. The world as it is vexing enough.
Iris, I have a tip for you.
Don't take drugs!
Or Whatever Movies with Wesley and Iris.
What up and welcome to Or Whatever Movies. I'm your co-host Iris and I'm here with my older brother
Wesley.
Today we're talking a movie from 2023. Todd Haynes directed, Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman starring in May-December.
So we're reviewing this movie because after reviewing all 10 nominees for Best Picture at the Academy Awards 2024, this one nominated for Best Screenplay. Did you laugh when the kids, meeting a big-time actress, was like, "Do you live in Calabasas?"
Well, specifically, the Kardashians live in Calabasas, which is, I think, the biggest claim to fame. But yeah, Calabasas, Topanga, Woodland Hills represent West Valley.
Did you view this as a mystery of sorts while Natalie Portman was doing furious research and scrapbooking and stuff over the character? I was doing furious math. Were you trying to piece together the years of when all this happened, when this movie was set, when the events took place, and thus how old the characters were, how old the people were in the scandal?
Well, you're the one who's obsessed with age, especially age vis-a-vis your age. So no, I wasn't doing furious math.
I sourced it because she said we're basically the same age, about 36. And I was like, wait. Because they had been together for X number of years. And I was like, no. How old is this kid? But then this movie wasn't a mystery. Everything was revealed, welcome to the class of 2015. And you're like, oh, this is where we are, in the graduation scene. And so it turns out that he was 12 when they first met. He was 13 during a lot of their relationship. And she was 37, supposed to be, at the time, which would make her born 1980, which is the year you were born. So you're right in line with the Natalie Portman character. And Julianne Moore is, give or take, 60.
Furious math.
And so a man-child, did you not think when you saw Jo that she was like a complacent mom? She's like, that's two, like implying no more beer for you, young man, kind of vibe. And I was like, oh, wait, he's the son, right? Like, where's the dad?
Right. And that continued, right? The lines are blurred. She's both mother and lover to the Jo character. Even when they're on the roof, she's like, all right, boys, time to go.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like she would have naturally a position of authority just given their age difference, especially considering she was in a position of authority as his teacher in elementary school.
Wait. No, you're conflating the historical inspiration with this fictional story.
You're right.
In this story, they work at the pet shop together.
Right. The pet shop when he's 12? Oh, man. Yeah.
She hires him, though. The pet shop owner guy confirms that she hired him. So I have a question for you. Since the inspiration for the story is based on a teacher, which of your teachers did you have the hots for?
There was a teacher lady, I think her last name started with a B, and she was very pretty and wore flowing dresses, and it was obvious, like, oh, she's the pretty one. And then I remembered a kid went up to her and said good morning and said, I like your dress, and picked up the hem of her dress and was like feeling the material between his fingers. And we didn't think anything about it, but he got called into the principal's office and got a stern talking to. You do not touch teachers. And so then I remember a very clear wall being established. As a matter of fact, I found a necklace on the street on walking on my way to school. It was a gold necklace with a little triangle with 3 diamonds inside it in a triangle pattern. And I gave it to her as a gift. This is before the dress hem thing happened. And I got called into the principal's office and I was like, what? And somehow the school knew who this guy was and found his gold necklace, the owner.
It was a guy's necklace?
Yeah, it was a man's, well, he owned it or whatever. And so they said, we want to thank you for bringing it in and giving it to Miss B, whatever her name was. The point is, I found a pretty necklace, gave it to a pretty teacher, and then was praised for returning the necklace by giving it to a teacher.
Whereas Hemboy got the smackdown.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that he felt it was innocent. I mean, I think she was a 2nd grade teacher. What are you going to do? But yeah.
Brian said there was one teacher, Miss So-and-so, and then she left. And when she came back, she had a different name. She was Miss Such and Such. And he was like, oh, man, I missed my chance.
Look, I mean, I can see that story, and that's a coming of age kind of defining moment. That was also one of the episodes of the Wonder Years. Are you sure he didn't take that?
Oh, maybe he's just appropriating it for himself.
Oh man, you know why? Because kids are stupid, and Joe was stupid, and Vili Fulau, the inspiration for Joe, was stupid because they're frickin' kids, man.
They're freaking kids. And to answer his question, yes, he is not capable of making those kinds of decisions, especially with an adult who is capable of making those decisions. But that doesn't necessarily excuse their later behavior. Like, why does Vili and why does this fictional Joe stick around for 25 years?
And here's where it gets dicey. Because they're still kids. Because she is so clearly a kid. When I realized what was happened, I was like, oh, they are all severely damaged and they're all going to bone each other. Watch. And part of that came to pass. But still.
Meaning when Elizabeth and Joe hook up?
It's a weird thing that Todd Haynes, the director, talked about how we expect Elizabeth to come in and kind of, she's our representation in this stronghold fortress where, you know, the media and stuff weren't allowed in, this very private inner sanctuary. And then we kind of begin to lose trust in her, but in a weird way, you feel sympathy for the Gracie character, the Mary Kay Letourneau character. And I'm not sure I got there because I got nothing but red flags. All like they were obscuring my field of vision watching this movie. She wasn't evil. She was just infantile. And that carried over into her 60s when she freaks out about the cookies and stuff.
It was pineapple upside down cake or whatever.
You're supposed to feel bad for her, but it was like creepy crying. I thought that it was manipulation. I thought she was like, oh no, he's with a lady who's his age. What if they bone? I better kind of appeal to him in a way that he understands and do like a clingy crying kind of thing. But it wasn't. That's who she was.
So we get bits and pieces of her backstory, that she was in this marriage with a guy who might have been controlling or at least made her feel isolated. And then she may or may not have been abused by her brothers. But she has some issues going on and she's definitely stunted. It made me think that is this secure thing that she supposedly has just a very thin facade?
Oh, absolutely. I think that she doesn't understand things maybe as fully, as comprehensively as she should. And thus her assessments of other people, including Elizabeth, are limited. Like if I say from the source that I wasn't abused by my brothers, then you have to believe it, right? That's what you will put in your movie. To allow someone to come in when you know that the public is facing this from a salacious perspective. You know that someone playing you in a movie is not going to play you the way you want to be perceived. I don't think the Gracie character understands that.
Was Gracie in control of the situation?
Not at all.
Well, it certainly seems like that was what they were trying to communicate after the graduation. Like, why does Gracie leave Elizabeth so stunned?
So there's a power dynamic that is constantly in flux in this movie. And I think that was the face-off at the end where she could assert her authority in a way. Hey, so this is my story. You're here by our grace. And when you do it right, okay? Because not everything that you heard is true. And that is the best of Gracie's quiet power in trying to convince Elizabeth of something. And yes, I think either Elizabeth was shaken up because maybe it's not all true and it shook the foundation of her character that she was preparing of Gracie. So I think that was her play for credibility. Like, hey, it's what I say and not what everyone says about me, because a lot of people say a lot of bad things about me, including my kids and the people who leave poop on my doorstep. But it's me that's important, and it's really not.
One could view the Elizabeth character as someone simply doing their job and doing it well, thoroughly.
Yes.
So why is she so unlikable? I mean, is it just because she's so plastic? Or is it because she does it with such dispassion and weirdness?
Because she's nuts. I'm sorry, but
Is
that
she?
level of dedication. Natalie Portman is maybe one of the more famous examples of someone who is sexualized from an extremely young age. Prepubescent Natalie Portman in Leon or The Professional is a big thing. There were clocks online. I remember this being just a few years older than Natalie Portman, countdown clocks until the day Natalie Portman turned 18 and was thus legal. Like, that's creepy. But if anybody knows sexualization of a young person, a celebrity, Natalie Portman maybe is one of those people. So I'm not surprised that she was drawn to this role. That said, Elizabeth was severely compromised. Elizabeth clearly had issues going on, in my humble opinion, because she wanted to get in Joe's pants, that level. That's not method acting. That's just creepy. Talking to the kids in high school. I mean, obviously they're going to ask about sex scenes and laugh and stuff. And she was talking about how it becomes, how you make it real. I can't remember exactly what she said.
Right. She's like, am I pretending to enjoy it or am I pretending not to enjoy it?
Right. It's that she really crossed a line of creepiness, obviously. And there's like, well, maybe she's just acting or whatever, and that's method, and you got to be a part of the process or whatever, until she actually bones Joe, and then she loses all credibility in that respect. Kelly Ray said, that black bra under that sheer blouse, that's a conscious choice. And she does the breathy, sexy thing or whatever, and it's like, eee.
It was definitely pretty cringy, definitely. And it appears that she's having an affair with her director, and she's also engaged and has a very skewed idea of what it means to be an adult. So she is in no better position to be educating Joe than Gracie is about what it means to be an adult. Although, that being said, of the people, the sexually abused 12-year-old or whatever is probably the most together. I mean, he's at least a good dad.
He tries to be a good dad because he's a bro dad, because he can be their friend. Joe has, I think, the most hope for being able to progress, to grow. But I think it's because he's trapped in this sort of arrested development age of, give or take, his age when people grow up, and just like Julianne Moore can be, the Gracie character can be commanding and authoritative and look someone right in the face with whom she's having a power struggle or exchange. Joe can be a father and can profess love for his kid and try to guide him down the right path until he dissolves into 13-year-old tears. I'm not saying you can't be emotional in front of your kids. I'm saying that I felt bad for Joe more than anybody, and that's not a misogynistic thing or whatever just because he has a wiener, which I saw, by the way, on camera, but because maybe he had a chance. Like, he was damaged, but he wasn't really in a position of power so much.
No more telling scene than when he leaves for like 2 seconds and she grabs the letter.
Yeah. I really did think, okay, she's really immersed in her performance, and boy, she's taking it to real extremes, like Shia LaBeouf extremes.
In the stockroom?
Who's another person who might have been arrested in sort of his development because of his alleged abuse at a young age and being thrust, into the public spotlight.
Her embodiment's pretty eerie, though, in the recitation of the letter and that final cheesy scene.
Well, the cheesy scene is one thing, but the letter recitation was remarkable and right to our faces, which was super awkward.
And one take.
It occurs to me now that was supposed to be in the mirror to herself, correct?
Yeah, and there was a lot of mirror motify stuff going on. There was the mirror in the dressing room, the mirror in the bathroom, images communicated through reflections and glass.
But that awkward scene where she's putting on makeup, and I was like, she is aggressively pursuing her, like the Gracie character. It wasn't. She was mimicking her. Even in the dressing room, very early on, their arms are crossed exactly the same.
Right.
And she's already beginning to mimic her posture. Natalie Portman didn't tell Julianne Moore that, who didn't recognize it or realize it until pretty late in filming. That
Whoa.
she, at pretty much at all times, is mimicking her performance.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Life is hard, but finding a really great podcast makes the days go by so much easier. Hi, my name is Blue Telusma. I'm a writer, an emotional intelligence coach, and the host of Humanize with Blue Telusma, a podcast where we believe that when you humanize everyone in the room, a great conversation is almost guaranteed. Join us every week here on Electricast as me and my guest co-hosts unpack big topics and interview even bigger personalities with a sense of humor and a dash of mischief. If you're looking for a new best friend in your head, we've got you covered. Electricast.
Performance.
I never knew that Julianne Moore had a lisp until I heard it through Natalie Portman's mouth.
Yeah, and then it was your holdovers moment with the eye, and then were you forever listening for it?
Yes. Yes.
There was Michaela, the mysterious text lady.
Oh, in the Monarch Facebook group?
Yeah. And Kelly Ray was like, so what are the chances that Elizabeth is Michaela? And I was like, interesting.
Oh, all like beef style?
Yeah, but I really thought that it was more that he had his own separate thing, and he was, by necessity, compartmentalizing so as to grow and develop on his own. It wasn't enough when Gracie was like, he's boned more women than I have men. He had 2 girls before her, and I was like, in the 7th grade? But okay, sure. So whatever. But that does not equal experience. To Gracie, it does. But he no more knew what he was doing in the 7th grade than any 12-year-old or whatever. That's not experience.
No, it isn't.
So he was doing his own thing in his own world with Michaela and whatever, and he considered that his, life outside of Gracie.
Right, and it's ironic to think that the isolation that Gracie may have felt in her first marriage, she basically perpetrated in her second marriage. They get the house because they did the magazine spread or whatever, and it's beautiful and all that, idyllic even, you might say, but it's pretty isolating. Like, it's just them and the kids, and they're just doing their thing.
If you're Mark Watney and you go to Mars, you're stuck in the habitat.
Ooh, what reference was that?
That was The Martian, dude. And for how beautiful and exclusive Mars is, and that no one else can see it, you can't go outside, and you're stuck in the tent all the time forever. And that is what Gracie and Joe were about. They were kind of stuck in their house.
Interesting that you bring up The Martian, another movie that attempts to create a lot of eerie tension where nothing happens.
Nothing happens.
Because what are the stakes for May, December? Is it that they don't have enough hot dogs for their barbecue?
Right. Dong, ba-bong. And you're like, whoa, we're going to dramatic sting the hot dogs? It spoke of melodrama and of camp.
Right.
I was like,
and an attempt at humor that worked. But I think that original hot dog establishing of the device kind of undermined the device later on.
yeah, when they did it for real, when is that when Elizabeth was off balance at the graduation?
Yeah, and kind of throughout. So I did do a little bit of research on Todd Haynes. I know that he's a Douglas Sirk fan, and he talks a lot about the Sirkian ending, the so-called Sirkian ending, the happy endings that aren't really happy. And that Douglas Sirk was like the forerunner to the soap opera. And this is pure soap opera, disguised as a premium independent feature film.
From the stings and the score, I was like, are they trying to make this a horror movie? Or are they just trying to amp out, look, we got nothing here, and it's all in inference, and it's all in their history. Let's make it dramatic. Give me a big score. Give me a big moment on the hot dog. And so I thought that's what they were trying to manipulate. But I did get the tension, and I did get the feels, and those feels primarily for about 2 hours of runtime was all ick. It was almost nonstop ick. Look, there was nothing sexy in the sex scenes. All I got was ick and feeling bad for them.
So the tension comes from just being uncomfortable.
Yeah, I was like, oh no. Oh no.
So why not just base this on the life of Kay and Billy?
I mean, it was pretty close. Todd Haynes in particular didn't contact Billy. Mary Kay Letourneau has passed away. But he said, that's crappy of you. Maybe you should have given me a call and maybe gotten it right. And Julianne Moore heard that and was like, oh, I'm sorry he feels that way. And Natalie Portman heard that and was like, oh, I'm sorry he feels that way. Closely based, but names changed to protect I don't know. I mean, sure, there's accountability when we're dealing with very sketchy, tough subject matter to get it right if you're going to get it right. And then you can hide behind the factuality of, we did this authentically, and this isn't our perversion. This is what happened. But here they could kind of do whatever they wanted, but it was closed. Nobody's making secrets. Nobody's suggesting that this wasn't the Mary Kay Letourneau, Vili Fulau story. The music supervisor kid, that kid is definitely a killer, right?
Oh, yeah. He's going to have problems.
And easily more surface level traumatized than the Gracie character. He was a child who saw his home broken up for that reason, still in regular contact with his mom, so he can't get away, and super damaged. This is not a comment on people who survived sexual abuse and things, but it kind of makes sense. And what was his motivation to lie? Because he leveraged her saying, look, I want to be music supervisor, or I'm going to go talk to people about what you're doing. I'm not exactly sure what that threat was. Maybe he was asserting his credibility by giving her a tidbit that rocked her world. But that dude, I was like, if this comes to a head, if this movie goes where it has the potential to go, that dude is definitely a killer.
Yep, he starts as like a shyster, and then he like graduates to being killer.
Oh.
But then again, maybe because he's not repressed. Maybe because it is all on the surface. He's not damaged internally. I don't know. They all kind of had issues. Every time the high school girl, the younger daughter, one of the twins, was at school like with friends, I was like, wow, she's so normal. Like I expected her to be perpetually damaged, but they were kind of, They had to live.
She's the result of other people's trauma. She maybe grew up a little bit sheltered, like her mom, I guess, but she didn't experience the trauma happen to her. It's like 9/11. If it happened before you were born or too young to understand, it's not a thing. It's like World War II. It's just part of history that we don't fully understand. The long-reaching, sustained impact and trauma that inflicted on people. Georgie is the post-trauma punk kid. It ruined my life, or whatever. And I think he kind of embraces that identity because it brings with it some notoriety, which is all kids want, is to be known and to be famous or whatever. But the fact that Gracie talks to Georgie every day was in a way scarier to me. Like that was like, ooh, that's probably not a good idea. That's not going to help you move on. That's going to keep you firmly in the mold of trauma.
Well, and that's kind of what she wants. Like these two families, her first family and her second family, she keeps them all close. And what did he say? He sits down and he says to her, like, has she messed you up yet? Like,
Right?
I think it's a both and with the Georgie and the Gracie characters. Like, I think that he simultaneously hates and can't be separated from her.
Yeah, that's a little bubble of self-reinforcing, not delusion, just they're cycling trauma, man. Like, it seems like even in allowing Elizabeth to play this role, maybe they need the money, but also they're just opening it all up, and they're taking themselves back to that time. It confused me greatly as to why that they would allow that to happen.
Well, because Gracie is convinced and always has been that she's never done anything wrong.
Whew. Yeah. And then unfortunately, of all of them, Elizabeth is maybe the most ill. You know, Gracie had a predilection and she acted on it in a predatory kind of way. Is it wrong? Is it a crime if someone with the mental ability, with the mental capacity of a 12-year-old seduces a 12-year-old? Can they be faulted for that? Like, they can't help it. That's just how they feel. And they don't feel like they're being evil, even if societally we view that as an inherently evil act, because they're damaging children. But maybe that was this movie's justification in trying to get us to feel some kind of sympathy for Gracie, because she's maybe not irredeemable. I associated her too closely with the actual events, so it's hard for me to remove that level of she was in a position of authority. Could have told him, you are going to have an affair with me, or you're going to do the sexy with me. And he would have been like, okay, Mrs. Letourneau, you know. Ugh. And so I had to remove myself from all that. You can't steer people or groom people or whatever the term is. It's not okay. And they knew it. They knew it. They had to. Like the zone of interest, you have to land on one side or another. You can't be ambiguous. Even in a seemingly ambiguous film, you have to draw a line. And the line was, am I naive? I am naive. You know, she was abused. She abused him. She didn't feel it was wrong, but that doesn't mean that we couldn't firmly understand that it was wrong. The fact that Georgie revealed that if you know, this all blew up on her, it would literally kill her.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry. She's an extremely weak soul. She's infantile, and that's bad, but I can't save her, and it's not okay for her to do things that are bad. So that's why I got the icks, because it was my self-preservation thing. Like, I don't want to wade into the moral debate of child abuse and if that can ever be justified. And I think that Elizabeth was happy to wade into that debate because she was acting out some weird demons on her own. Like, the final scene of her saying it's getting more real was basically her becoming that person. Like, let's do another take where I can get closer and be creepier and sexier, because for me, it's beginning to feel real, which is what I want.
That was the meaning of the snake scene?
I think so, because every time she got closer and more seductive and was touching him more, and I was like, ugh. And he's like, great, we got it. And she was like, no, even though you got it, we got it for this no-budget movie. I want to do it again.
It's complex and it's so cringy because it butts up against our feeling that this person did something wrong. And yet we also know intuitively that we are not our worst deeds. And so what is Gracie realistically supposed to do? Curl up in a ball and give up on life? Like, these people who do bad things, some of which are public, go on and barbecue and go to flower arranging class, and they bake and they raise kids and they live their lives.
Absolutely.
But I think it's an interesting take to look at that and have that continue to run up against this idea that this thing that she did 25 years ago was so wrong.
And maybe she couldn't have been held accountable, really. It wasn't clear how long she was in prison, although I understand how long Mary Kay Letourneau was in prison. And yeah, she deserves to live a life, and people who are out of prison don't have opportunities, and they're given, sometimes they can find a job opportunity, or people help them, or people save them. That's all great. It's not that they don't deserve to have happy lives. I can't wade into the fray. I can no longer, because I went through this as a young person, this idea that I had to save people, that I was responsible for helping people who couldn't help themselves. I can't be that person. And so that was my position after this movie, was a little bit of a posture of defensiveness. just because all these people exist and they all have traumas, my number one goal is to stay away, for the most part, from serious trauma.
Drama.
Drama.
You don't want drama in a box.
You can't save people, and those people deserve to live or whatever, but the whole point of not cycling trauma, not making trauma generational, where abusers abuse their kids or people who were beaten beat their kids. It's my privilege in life, having reached the age I am, where I'm not so damaged, definitely damaged. It's not so damaged that I can't function or that I have to seek out that trauma in other avenues of my life, in romantic partners or whatever, so that I can try to help those people.
It's true. Ain't nobody got time for trauma.
Right? Can't save you. Got the icks. Understand this movie. Everything was revealed in the end, and I was like, oh. But I was also like, oh. Still, better than Poor Things. Much more compelling than half of the Best Picture nominees that I saw this year. Just a little bit icky.
Is that an official all right?
All right.
I agree. Perhaps more coherent and more compelling than some of the other nominees, which is curious. And I really didn't expect it. I'll give May December a good, and that's our discussion on May December 2023 Best Screenplay nominee. At the Academy Awards, what did you think of May December? 818-835-0473 or whatevermovies@gmail.com. Thank you for your support. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Hey there, fabulous souls. I'm Stephanie Baklaan.
And I'm Eden Alpert.
And we're the hosts of the brand new podcast, Unapologetically Fab.
Get ready to join us on an amazing and real journey as we dive into life after 40 and own it.
We're all about changing the narrative, leaning into who you are, and living a life by your own design.
Join us as we embrace life unapologetically and redefine success.
This is Unapologetically Fab,
an Electric Cat production.
See you there.
Electricast.
Miles, are you ready to record our promo for Season 2 of the Wanna Bet podcast?
David, have you ever seen a grown man naked?
Miles, we're not here to quote lines from Airplane. We're here to tell people that Season 2 starts August 18th.
But I like Airplane.
I know you do, but Wanna Bet is a sports betting podcast. Each week we bet $1,000 on the NFL teams and games that we love.
Well, that sounds like fun.
It is fun. And last year you picked over 60% of your games correctly.
How'd you do?
We're not talking about that. We are telling people that they can find us every Friday. So no more movie quotes.
Roger.
Electricast. Electricast.